Okay, so we come back to the Bruticelo, the much suppressed ancient history. And the kingdom was rent into 5 parts, each part under its own king, which kings continually fought one another. After many years there arose a famous youth named Dunvalo Malmitius. He was the son of Cloten, a petty king of Cornwall, and his beauty and courage outshone that of all the kings of Britain. And he restored the land to its ancient dignity, and compiled laws which are known to this day as the laws of Dunvalo Malmitius, which even the Saxons obey. And he granted right of sanctuary to temples and to cities, and even to certain roads defined by law, so that any man who fled to them, whatever wrong he had done, should find sanctuary there unimpeded and without license from his foes. Now this is an essay by, a guy who had connections with Oxbridge, but he certainly wasn't an establishment man, and you'll get that from this quote. His name's Flinders Petrie. The condition of pagan Britain is remarkably preserved in the laws of Dyfnwal Moelmud. That these laws are certainly long before the 10th century is proved by the gulf that exists between the state of society shown by them and that of the laws of Howell, fixed to AD 914. The laws of Howell refer back to Moelmud. What takes the laws of Moelmud at least to Roman times is that they are purely pagan, he means Druidic. How much farther back those laws may date, towards the traditional time of Moelmud, the 4th or 7th century BC, we cannot now inquire. That's because of how much history has been erased. The whole air is that of simple conditions and a free life, with much personal cultivation and sympathy and general conduct. It would be impossible to produce such a code from a savage or violent people, and this intimate view of their life is the best ground for judging of their qualities. Okay, this is a Stuart's historian, so an establishment historian we're talking about here. Percy Enderby says in his history published in 1661 that Malmitius took upon himself the government of Brittany, i.e. Britain, in the year of the world's creation 4748. Meanwhile, the Tudor historian Holinshed reported in the 1587 edition of the Chronicles that Malmitius began his reign over the whole monarchy of Britain in the year of the world 3529. That's 439 BC in the current calendar. Both authors agree with Tisserot on the reign's duration of 40 years. Given that the foundation of Rome was in 753 BC, Malmitius's reign was 439 to 399 BC. This is right for Malmitius's son Brennus to be the enemy commander at the sack of Rome in 390 BC and to be named as such by the Roman historian Livy. We're talking about the sack of Rome by the son of Malmitius, the ancient creator of the British common law system, which still, though hidden from view, exists today. It's never been repealed. It couldn't be repealed because it requires a convention of the people. It cannot be repealed by any so-called government, especially a government of usurpers, pirates and genocidal maniacs. The Ancient Laws of Cambria, William Probart, circa 1823. These triads are remarkably curious and interesting. They throw great light upon the manners and customs of the old Britons, and in many cases breathe a spirit of freedom that would not disgrace the polish of the 19th century. These triads also merit attention on account of their antiquity. They were framed by Dyfnwal Moelmud, who flourished about 400 years before the Christian era, and consequently are upwards of 2,000 years old. There are 3 tests of civil liberty: equality of rights, equality of taxation, freedom to come and go. There are 3 causes which ruin a state: inordinate privileges, corruption of justice, and national apathy. Ring any bells? There are 3 things which cannot be considered solid longer than their foundations are solid: peace, property, and law. 3 things are indispensable to a true union of nations: sameness of laws, rights, and language. There are 3 things free to all Britons: the forest, the unworked mine, the right of hunting wild creatures. There are 3 things which are private and sacred property in every man, Briton or foreigner: his wife, his children, his domestic chattels. There are 3 things belonging to a man which no law of men can touch, fine, or transfer: his wife, his children, and the instruments of his calling. For no law can unman a man or uncall a calling. There are three persons. Is that a legal fiction? Is it? No. They're talking about men and women. They're not talking about a legal fiction. There are three persons in a family exempted from all manual or menial work. The little child, the old man or woman, and the family instructor, the tutor, the educator, the real educator. There are three orders against whom no weapon can be bared: the herald, the bard, and the head of a clan. There are three of private rank against whom no weapon can be bared: a woman, a child under 15, and an unarmed man. There are three things that require the unanimous vote of the nation to effect: the deposition of the sovereign, the introduction of novelties in religion, and suspension of law. There are three civil birthrights of every Briton: the right to go wherever he pleases, the right wherever he is to protection from his land and sovereign, the right of equal privileges and equal restrictions. There are three property birthrights of every Briton: 5 British acres of land for a home, the right of armorial bearings, the right to carry arms, the right of suffrage, which is voting, in the enacting of the laws, the male at 21, the female on her marriage, so the women generally married before 21 had a vote before the men. There are three guarantees of society: security for life and limb, security for property, security of the rights of nature. There are three sons of captives who free themselves: a bard, a scholar, a mechanic. There are three things the safety of which depends on that of the others: the sovereignty, national courage, and just administration of the laws. There are three things which every Briton may legally be compelled to attend: the worship of God, military service, and the courts of law. For three things a Briton is pronounced a traitor and forfeits his rights: emigration, collusion with an enemy, and surrendering himself and living under an enemy. There are three things free to every man, Briton or foreigner, the refusal of which no law will justify: water from a spring, river or well, firing from a decayed tree, a block of stone not in use. There are three orders who are exempt from bearing arms: the bard, the judge, the graduate in law or religion. These represent God and his peace, and no weapon must ever be found in their hand. There are three kinds of sonship: a son by marriage with a native Briton, an illegitimate son acknowledged on oath by his father, and a son adopted out of the clan. But that goes for daughters as well. There are three whose power is kingly in law: the sovereign paramount of Britain over all Britain and its isles, the princes palatine in their princedoms, and the heads of the clans in their clans. Three are the thieves who shall not suffer punishment: a woman compelled by her husband, a child, a necessitous person who has gone through 3 towns and 9 houses in each town without being able to obtain charity though he asked for it. There are 3 ends of law: prevention of wrong, punishment for wrongs inflicted, and insurance of just retribution. There are 3 lawful castigations: of a son by a father, of a kinsman by the head of a clan, of a soldier by his officer. The chief of a clan, when marshalling his men, may strike his man 3 ways: with his baton, with the flat of his sword, with his open hand. Each of these is a correction, not an insult. There are 3 sacred things by which the conscience binds itself to truth: the name of God, the rod of him who offers up prayers to God, the joined right hand. There are 3 persons who have a right to public maintenance: the old, the babe, the foreigner who cannot speak the British tongue. We're certainly not talking about a set of laws which could all be applied today fairly, equitably, or justly. But many of them could be. And many of them still form the basis of the common law. Alfred the Great, the so-called Anglo-Saxon lawmaker, he incorporated the Mamertine laws into the Saxon laws before all of the indigenous tribes of Britain, as opposed to the invading tribes, had been wiped out. What they did was they created a hierarchy which didn't exist. There was no social hierarchy. There were only roles, rights, and responsibilities. Mulmud, who created the laws, had no more rights except within his role as sovereign paramount than any other man or woman. In other words, let's just say you had a beef with the king. You could ask the king for a duel. But this didn't often happen because generally the kings who wronged the people were removed. Because remember, it said, in the Mamertine laws, it says that the people, the voice of the country, was above the king or the queen, above. Any despotic ruler at any time before the Saxon genocide, anybody could be deposed by a simple process. That process was an aggrieved party went to the head of his clan and said, I've got this grievance. I think we should secede or we should form our own sovereign nation outside of this despot. They held a vote in their clan and that was it. They were outside. It had to be accepted. Now, that didn't mean that whoever they had the grudge against or the dispute with, that didn't mean that they couldn't wage war against them, and they very often did. There have been endless civil wars, but Mahmud, he put an end to them. And the reason he did it is because he created a much fairer system than had ever existed before. And he confirmed that everybody had the same rights. Everybody was born with these unalienable rights. Now, why is it, do you think, that they've been able to get away with erasing so much of this from view? Why is it? Let's look at it this way. Which is the only species on this planet that has to pay for its very existence on it?